Welcome to the final episode of the 59 Fender Bassman combo at Build.
Okay everybody, this is the final episode for this amp. The last thing I had to do was figure out what that squeal was, and I absolutely did figure that out. I'm going to just walk through a little bit about what I did to fix that. Very, very simple. And then we're just going to do a wrap on it, and I'll put the back cover on it again, and I'll play a little bit, and that's going to be the end of it. Just to walk you through here, you'll see I've got my speakers connected. Everything looks good there. I've got my label inside. A quick walkthrough of the board. Pretty standard stuff, right? All those orange drops. There's the mod that I put in right there. That goes to the bias adjuster, the bias pot right there. I've actually got a screwdriver in there at the moment. Pretty standard stuff. So I had two problems that were causing my squeal. One was I had the amp biased way too hot. If you remember, I was putting it up at about 40 and did a little research and figured out that that was the symptom. So I actually brought the bias down to, let's take a look at it. I've got my thing connected here. Let me put the volume down because you're supposed to turn the volume down when you do a bias. And I've got the bias set to about 35 millivolts. And if I flip to the other side, the other tube, I'm at about 36. So that's where this thing is running, and it's going to stay there. It seems to be a good setting. Okay, so that was the first problem. Second problem was these two top speakers. I had the wires reversed, so I had the commons and the negatives backwards on both of those. I couldn't see in there, and if you see in there real close, they're mounted sideways. So that was part of the problem. So I've corrected all those issues, and now the amp plays really, really well. So I'm going to leave leave the bias exactly where it is. I'm going to put this back cover on, and then we're going to flip it around, and I'll take you a walk through the front. But this is the completed inside. All right, let's take one pass look. There's my speaker connections that I made with heat shrink wrap on there. All right, everything's pretty neat. And there's the bias pot. All right, let's flip it around. All right, folks, we've got the amp all put together, and there she is, looking nice. I'm going to turn her on. And we'll do some close-ups here so you can see it in a second. You can see the control panel. But she's going to sound real sweet when she's nice. I am going to use it primarily for bass. Alexa, volume 4. Anyway, she's working really well. Let's take a... sounds so sweet, doesn't it? And the volume is on 5 for that. Really hard to see on a videotape, but... Anyway, let's take a walk around and look at the controls. Alright, so we're looking at the front of the amp. There's the Fender Bassman label I told you about. It's been mounted nicely. And of course here, where it says ground, that's where we've got our potentiometer for our bias adjustment. And what I'll do is I'll put a plastic cover over that hole so it just keeps dust out of it. There's our fuse, there's our main power switch, there's our standby switch, there's our light, and then we've got a presence knob, a middle, a bass, a treble, a bright, and a normal volume. And then we've got our input jacks. And she's looking like a sweet little amp right there. Look at that. Alright, so I'm going to do the wrap of this thing. I'm going to set the camera on the tripod and we'll wrap up. Be right back. Alright, so let's do a little recap of this project. So first of all, I found it really, really cool to build something like this. That, you know, it's 60 years old, right? And it's really, really good to put the components together and actually have it work on the first try. I had very little stumbles on this thing. You know, if you remember, the only problem I really had was the bias circuit was a little low, so the 59K resistor that I had in the bias circuit didn't seem to do the trick, so I had to remove that and I put in a 15K and a trim pot potentiometer, and I've got my bias now just about 35, 36, which is really, really good. I had it biased too hot the first time, and that's why I was getting that squeal and overdriving the tubes, basically. And I had the speakers wired incorrectly, 2 of them. So, so the project is now complete, and I've got a really, really good piece of gear here that that I'm going to get some really good use out of. It's not a 1959, and I'm not going to get $10,000 for it, and I don't want to. For me, it's worth a lot more than that because I built it from scratch. So a lot of fun on this thing. So the next thing for me to do on this amp is to really burn it in. So I'm going to turn it on, leave it on for many hours, make sure that it doesn't have any problems or develop any problems after it's really, really hot and burned in. And then maybe what I'll do is I'll bring it to my next practice for my band and run it through the paces and see how it handles that. One thing that I'm considering doing is replacing the Jensen speakers with more bass type speakers and keeping the Jensens, obviously, because they're true to the amp. But I want to see how those Jensen speakers handle the bass, because in 1959 that's all they had, so it had to work. So so that's going to be my plan there, and I think it was a good project all along. I really thank all of you for sticking with me on this. I know it's a little annoying sometimes to watch these videos, and it's hard to follow sometimes. I'm going to try to continue to work on that. I'm using a tripod now, so that's a plus. Let me show you what I'm going to work on next. I'm going to take this amp off the bench here and show you what my next project is, and you'll start to see some stuff on that. So anyway, thank you everybody for sticking with me on this, and here comes the next project.
Here is our next project of PHILCO 46 Dance 1201.
All right, everybody, here it is. It's a 46-1201 PHILCO radio, AM radio. And this is a really unique one because look what it has here. You pull this open and you insert a record in there, and you close it and it engages the record automatically. This was known as the Bing Crosby model, I believe. These things sold like hotcakes because it had Bing Crosby's name on it. And they're very basic, all American 5s, I think. I haven't opened it yet. And that record player stuff looks pretty amazing, and the flocking on the platter seems to be intact. I haven't taken it apart yet. I haven't plugged it in. Obviously, not going to do that. But let's take a look at the schematic and see what it looks like. But in general, the case is in pretty bad shape, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of restoration there. And this is obviously veneer, and we'll see how we'll tackle that. And these knobs that are here are actually accented in gold. And I'll see if I can preserve that. My PHILCO logo looks pretty good, so I won't have to worry about that. And all of the the lettering and stuff looks really good. The glass is good. Just have to clean up around the glass. Let's pop open the schematic. All right. First thing you'll notice on this on this device is that there's no transformer. Obviously, there is a rectifier. There's a 35Y4 rectifier. And then first stage is a 7C6, second stage is a 50A5, and then a 7A8 converter, and a 7B7IF. So like I said, haven't opened it yet. What I've done now is simply on this diagram, I've marked all the capacitors in blue, all the resistors in yellow, and I've got myself a little legend here so I can keep track and know exactly what components are in this thing. And there's the model, 561201, and it's a fairly simple radio. There's really not much to it. The mechanism for the phonograph is going to be something I have to think about. The needle on those things are always tricky. I don't know if it works or doesn't work. It's usually a crystal needle, crystal cartridge, but there's ways to fix that. I did a RCA 65U last year, which was 1946 as well, and I was able to get that working, no problem. So next step is going to be to rip the cabinet open and see what we've got inside, and then we'll start to do some preliminary testing and repairing. Not a lot of capacitors in this thing. Actually, I have a diagram here. This is the chassis top view, and this is the bottom view. And they've got everything marked really nicely. What's a capacitor and what's a rectifier. There's a choke. Looks like there's a big firecracker in there. There's another one. Probably some of those old wax jobs are in here. So looks a little cramped, but no problem. We'll get this thing working. So that's going to be my next project, and you'll start to see a series pop up on this one as well. That's what the record player looks like underneath. There's the motor, a whole bunch of stuff, a couple of gears. That's the top of the record player. I think it has a fixed arm. It's kind of weird. I have to look and see how that works. But anyway, that's going to be my next project, and you'll start to see a new series. So again, thank you for all your support while I was working on that Fender Bassman. And next step is going to be working on this beauty. This is Ron. Say hi, Bella. Don't go anywhere. Here comes the bloopers. Alexa, Simon says, and here is our next project, a PHILCO 46-1201.
And here's our next project at PHILCO.
Alexa, Simon says, here's our next project, a PHILCO. Stupid.
Here's our next project of PHILCO.